There was a friendly party at the official Admiralty dinner, and at last the gambling house of the Street of Amusement showed itself before the protagonist. It was the Emperor Byron. Lucas Edward, the only Earl Edward, the chairman of the Upper House of Parliament of the Empire of Bierce, suggested Byron not to languish and go indoors. Eric, the firstborn of another Faber family that owned a thriving iron and steel business, also pointed out that there were many things interesting and unusual in the house. The three boys now entered this mansion. There, they were also immediately greeted by the butler. "You finally arrived. I haven't seen you for so long that I was beginning to worry," said the man. But then he saw the new guest, so Lucas decided to personally introduce his acquaintance. "You remember about the man from the newspaper that made so much noise, right? The one who, during the naval battle at the Cane Islands, broke into the enemy's camp and captured the admiral of the army, the hero of the empire, Captain Byron Clark. That's him," Lucas explained. And what was the butler's surprise? The man hadn't thought that the man who had personally defended the waters of the empire would ever come to see them. "What an honor, Captain! Please come in. I will escort you to the second floor to the finest room," said the butler, and led the boys a floor higher. At this time, Byron noticed a man on his knees begging another employee to give him another chance. As it turned out, the man was begging for another bet because he had lost earlier. Now the guest decided to put his own daughter on the line. "Everyone knows how beautiful she is. All bets are nothing compared to her," said the preoccupied man, gambling. But then Eric decided to stop him. "Excuse me, were you being serious just now? That you're willing to bet your own daughter? Are you sure about that for sure?" Eric decided to clarify the aristocratic guest. "Of course! In the entire city, no, in the entire empire, there's no substitute for her." The father of the very same girl continued to narrate. It seemed the fun was just beginning. Now the men were ready to start playing cards. The guests who came later to the event were genuinely interested in what was happening now, because the beggar duke had put his own daughter on the line. The protagonist, Byron, was still a lucky man, so he drew quite lucky cards. And before long, Byron had beaten the beggar man. Well, 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 someone's got a bill to pay. "Hey, Duke, you look like you've seen your son-in-law." The other guests laughed as soon as they saw the expression on the man's face. The beggar was too pathetic, so Byron couldn't look at him anymore. The guy immediately decided to leave without even taking his prize. "What are you doing, Byron? What about the winnings?" Right after the guy got up from under the table, Lucas asked, "That's right! You have every right to claim it and enjoy it to the fullest," Eric also said. And as soon as Byron tried to leave the office, the beggar man immediately started to stop him and grabbed his arm. "Give me another chance. If you play me one more time, I'll—" The man tried to talk him down, but the ruthless Byron didn't want to listen to him anymore. "Hey, isn't it about time you gave us the promised winnings already?" Lucas then decided to ask. That beggar duke also didn't want to back down. "Do you know who I am? Do you think you can avoid payback by treating me like this? Once the emperor finds out that you dared to touch my daughter, you won't be able to live a peaceful life." The man continued to threaten. After all, this was an unusual child. She was a girl with the blood of an emperor in her veins, so precious that she couldn't even be looked at. At this time, that same girl was at her home waiting for her father to return. From the long wait, her own sister Tiara even fell asleep. Her younger sister was already worried that something might have happened to Daddy. Olivia even had to comfort her sister. "Don't worry, everything will be fine. It's getting late, let's go to bed," Olivia suggested, and led her sister Tiara to her room. That night, even the wind was scaring Tiara. It seemed to the girl that there was a ringing squeak around the house as if it were ghosts. After Olivia put her little sister to bed, the girl decided that now she needed to make a list of things she needed to buy, and after that, go to bed too. Because starting tomorrow, Olivia would be able to work part-time for an acquaintance. Until last year, the beggar duke, along with his family, lived in a house that even had hot water. but because of her father's money problems, they had to look for cheaper accommodation. Tiara compared the howling of the wind to a ghost, but now even that sound is sweet to me. After all, if something had happened, we'd be out on the street by now, Olivia thought. They had managed to get the top floor of this dilapidated building thanks to a grant from the Imperial family. In truth, Olivia's deceased mother had been the first and most beloved daughter of this country's past emperor. The woman was adored by the people. This princess was named Alice. At such a young age, she was already engaged to the crown prince. The future marriage was blessed by both the emperor and all the subjects of the state. But one night, when the wedding was only 3 months away, Princess Alice disappeared. She had secretly fled the palace with her lover, the Duke of Dixie, from an impoverished family. It was like a knife in the back for the empire. Disappointed with his eldest daughter, the emperor decided to sever all relations with her, stripping the princess of her royal status and seizing all her property. He banished her from the empire. That's how circumstances turned Olivia's parents into paupers in the blink of an eye. And yet, Alice didn't just give up. The woman always advised her child to never lose her dignity. And so began Olivia's upbringing for the day when their status and privileges would finally be returned. Olivia took dancing lessons, learning proper manners, studied music and art and even foreign languages. Olivia studied everything her mother demanded of her. However, it was all just to get the child back to her rightful place. But the mom clinging to that hope had passed away, unable to escape the harsh reality. Already, even Olivia herself thought the same fate awaited her. That same day, a police officer suddenly knocked on Olivia's room. "Please come with me. His lordship is having trouble at the gambling house. You will find out the details on the spot," informed the uninvited guest. To be honest, Olivia wasn't surprised to see her dad in such trouble. He was, after all, a very gambling man. "In that case, I'm going to have to ask you to wait. I need to pack," Olivia said calmly. Even the police officer got the feeling that this was a familiar thing for the girl. Her own life was falling apart because of such a father. Once upon a time, her mother had taught Olivia not to lose her own dignity under any circumstances. For an ordinary person, these are just words, but Olivia will never forget them because this is the last thing her mom left her. Therefore, as soon as the girl got herself together, she followed the employee. The beggar Duke of Dixie continued to plead with the other players that they would not take his daughter away. "She has the emperor's blood flowing in her. She can't be taken away. Otherwise, terrible things will happen," the man narrated. The other people didn't want to listen to Dixie anymore. The casino employee had to remind the man several times that he had chosen to put his own child in the game. And besides, another employee had already been sent for her. Now, all Dixie could do was walk away. His yelling wouldn't do any good. "Hey, Byron, what's it like to expect an audience with your mom? What is considered His Majesty's niece?" Lucas decided to ask at that moment. It was obvious that Byron himself didn't believe Dixie, which he was actually showing. The friends debated amongst themselves as to whether or not this could actually be true. At the very least, one would wonder if this girl would actually be beautiful. Byron himself videoed Lucas and Eric enjoying the situation. But there was no telling yet how far this joke would go. After a couple minutes, the Duke was informed that Dixie's daughter had arrived. That's when the girl walked into the room. Everyone was surprised at how confident she acted. The guests even thought that she didn't realize the seriousness of the situation. "There seems to be some kind of mistake here. You weren't called here to pay a monetary debt." Eric then decided to explain so that the girl would definitely understand the whole situation. "Since that's the case, I have no more reason to stay here. I'll see my father off," said the lady. But Eric added that she would have to come back here after that, and then the girl's world turned upside down. His lordship recklessly put his own daughter on the line. It was this gentleman here who won against him. Do you understand now? Eric had already explained everything definitively and pointed to Byron, who you had won at cards. Now Olivia was in an uncomfortable position. Examining those guys more closely, she noticed the luxurious white uniforms. These men are definitely military and naval officers. If they're also from the capital, they're definitely aristocrats. What to do? Grab father and run away? No. Even if we tried, there would be guards waiting outside the door. Olivia began to reason then. Now she seemed to have only one option left. She decided to approach Byron to express her outrage. No shame, no conscience. A soldier, a defender of the Empire, spends his free time gambling. Do you know that buying and selling people is forbidden in this country? The proud girl decided to say. It seems that this is not exactly the place where law and morality usually reside. Then, with a slight smile, Byron answered her. Since when does a soldier forget about his own honor and dignity once he crosses the threshold of a playhouse? In fact, it was surprising to Byron that in a situation like this, the girl could still read admonishments. I ask you to forgive my father's mistake this time. Let me give back the bet made by my father with money. Then decided to ask the girl. Is that so? I don't want to. Unexpectedly, in the same second, a guy answered her. You should obey. After all, you are my winnings. Take off your veil. I'm not interested in you or your money. However, if left to my own devices, I will be at a loss. So show your face for once. Then we'll be even. Byron added. Byron knew that should be enough for a good spectacle. At this time, Lucas and Eric, who were silently watching this dialogue from the sidelines, expressed their opinion on Byron's request being too simple. At the same time, the friends couldn't wait to see how it would end. But if we just let the girl go now for nothing, those fools definitely won't get away from her, and I don't want to be dragged into another adventure. Byron thought at that moment. Even Olivia's father had talked the girl into showing her face. All the more reason for the lady to stick to her own principles. To act with honor and dignity might have been too noble for a gambling house. But now, Olivia had no other choice. Then the girl took off her hat and revealed the true, beautiful face of an aristocrat. Byron, at that moment, immediately remembered the words of the girl's father. In all the family, no, in all the empire, there's no substitute for her. And Byron thought that the wandering duke was lying, but the daughter turned out to be really beautiful. At least it was true. Right after Olivia brought her daddy home, then the girl, along with her sister, put the man on the bed in the other room. Sister, should I close the door? I just thought I'd ask because I suddenly had the thought that I wouldn't care if I locked my dad in this room right now. Not only would I feel nothing, but I would even be glad. I put up with him getting drunk every day. I put up with him spending all his money on gambling. You can get used to that sort of thing and even put up with it, Tiara admitted. But I'll never forgive him for what he did to you. Look at him. As soon as he stepped over the threshold, he fell into an unbroken sleep as if nothing had happened. How can you be so unscrupulous? Tiara's younger sister was angry and didn't understand. Olivia, along with Papa, had returned last night. Byron then told her that the debt had been paid. Only thanks to that aristocrat, fortunately, the officer kept his word. So they left the gambling house as soon as everyone saw Olivia's face without the mask. What if we tell His Majesty about this? Let's ask him for help before my father makes another mess of things. Perhaps he'll listen to us. After all, you are his niece. Tiara decided to suggest, but Olivia was against the idea. If their father's bad deeds became known, even Olivia wouldn't know what would happen to their allowance, so the older sister forbade Tiara to do so. At this point, the girls were only able to calm down when they hugged each other. There is nowhere to wait for help, because for the ruler, Olivia is only a despicable child of the one who ruined his own sister. The country houses of both the Imperial family and other aristocrats are located on the coast of the seaside city, which is not far from the capital. Its pearl is the northern part with magnificent scenery, which originally belonged to an ancient count family. However, Soon the possessions of aristocrats that did not keep up with the times were bought by the rich, who practically monopolized the railway business of the empire of the Claus family. After what had happened, Byron came to his Aunt Mary. "Did you really come on that railroad yourself? Seriously? Why purposely do something your father doesn't like?" asked Mary. "I don't know it myself. And be but still spared a son that he can't even afford a driver?" Byron said sarcastically, and held out his aunt's hand for Mary to follow him. Mary told him that if anyone was more interested in his property than the lad himself, it was his father. "Unfortunately, I can't say I own it all. All I own is an old house and a deposit," the young lad confessed. Mary thought he continued to flinch. And after all, it was rumored that he had inherited a vast fortune from his mother. "Well, since you don't want to talk, fine. I respect your decision. I'll just silently support from the sidelines," Mary decided. Besides, Byron wasn't aware of the real reason why his grandfather confided in him after all, so Mary decided to tell the whole truth. "Did you know there will be someone at your little brother Frank's engagement party tonight? I'm talking about Earl Klein's daughter. But if your father were also aware of this, the happy smile wouldn't leave his face all day," added Auntie. Frank is Byron's half-brother, whose mother is an aristocrat. In the pursuit of elevated status, his father appointed him as heir to the family without any hesitation. It must be a pleasure for him himself to marry the daughter of a high-ranking nobleman. Someone should already hurry up and find one to make him happy, too. Mary decided to hint. "However, remember, don't you dare even look in Isabelle's direction, or we will not be spared the misfortune," added her aunt. Mary revealed that there were rumors that Isabelle was in love with Byron. Byron then recalled how His Majesty and his daughter had visited during his military school days. "I feel nothing for her," the protagonist stated in a serious tone. "You do, but the Emperor has a different opinion. The current ruler remembers all too well the sister who was molded by love and who ruined her life because of it. And making a rational decision can sometimes be difficult, especially when your own daughter could become the next Alice," Aunt Mary said. Byron, after all, remembered Princess Alice's sad story well. It seems a wandering duke of a gambling house had mentioned something similar, that his daughter might have the blood of the Emperor flowing through her. Byron remembered then. That said, the guy thought that it was just rogues, so he even decided not to think about it. At the same time, in the Imperial Palace, the Emperor along with the Empress were looking at what they found in their daughter's room. His wife could not calm down as her daughter kept looking at Byron's pictures. Though the Emperor tried to calm her down, the woman continued to be hysterical. "The girl that will soon be married is admiring another man every night. Do you seriously think there's nothing wrong with that?" shouted the missus. "Believe me, it won't affect her future in any way, and it doesn't matter what her feelings for Byron really are." The Empress continued to be reassured by the girl's father. But after all, the Empress remembered the story of Alice perfectly well, and Isabelle could repeat such a fate, which was what her mother feared most of all. Alice had a fiancé, too, but being head over heels in love, she ruined a planned marriage, thought the woman. "I apologize. I didn't intend to bring up that humiliation. I'm just afraid that a similar story might happen again." The Empress also apologized when she saw how uncomfortable the Emperor became at the memory of the story. "I know, my dear. However, that will never happen. Byron is a commendable young man, but he will never be a match for the princess," said the man. It was then that the Empress decided to ask if her husband was sure that he did not want to interfere in Olivia's fate. It seems that her father is causing a lot of trouble. The Duke is even visiting gambling houses now. What if something happens to Olivia? Worried the stranger's mother. The only reason he showed any concern before was Alice. They must be having a hard time right now, Emperor added. The woman revealed that she too despised the Duke with all her soul. But that doesn't mean that Alice's favorite daughter should suffer the same as her father. Why not take one look at her? The Empress then told of her idea. I was also thinking, how about finding a suitable groom for Olivia? Captain Klaus, for example, suggested the woman. And she meant the very same Klaus whose pictures their own daughter had been looking at. A hero of the Empire who has achieved a high position despite his low status. And if he is not demoted in the future, he will be well worthy of marrying a girl from the Imperial family. The Empress shared her opinion. No matter how lowborn he may be, he is still one of the richest men in the Empire. Why would someone who can get the daughter of any petty aristocrat as a wife get involved with Alice's child? Sincerely, the Emperor did not understand. The Dixies may be a poor family now, but they are still a ducal family with a long history. Besides, Olivia is also from the Imperial family, right? Believe me, Isabelle will only benefit from this. Once Byron Claus is busy, Isabelle will make the right decision. Then the Empress spoke up, and the man realized what she was getting at. You are the Emperor, so why not use one insignificant officer in any way you wish? The woman added. Protect Princess Isabelle by forcing Byron and Olivia to marry, the Empress declared. In this world, marriage is a form of business. So, for example, after receiving a huge inheritance from a union with another girl's mother, her father married a second time, but to a woman from an aristocratic family, all for a chance at high status. Byron is not a man who would miss the benefits of a new marriage. Well, Lucas's cousin Lucas remembered the act forever, and so it was at an event that Sandra met the officer. It's been a while, Byron. What do you think about the news of your favorite little brother's engagement? She decided to ask the only daughter of Duke Rafe, the richest man in their country, because as a commodity in the marriage market, Sandra decided to ask the highest price for herself. And when Byron replied to her that he thought her younger brother would marry into the honorable family, the girl agreed with his opinion. I agree, and it's all because of the Klaus family's fame. You can't propose to just anyone. True, I do not think that in the future it will also apply to you, the lady admitted. Sandra. Some time ago she married and became a countess of another family, but suddenly the marriage started to crack at the seams, so now preparations for the divorce of the marriage are in full swing. So sometime next year, the Duke's daughter will return to the family as if nothing had happened. That's how influential the Rafe family is, pondered Byron. Byron, I will do my best to change your low status in this society. I will try not to make a single mistake, Sandra promised then. I have certainly not forgotten our trusting relationship with you, so I will also do my best. Answer her boyfriend. But to inform one more nuance, Byron moved closer to the girl, bent down and whispered in her ear. However, you shouldn't blindly trust other people's words. For now, the Rafe clan are the best candidates for me, but the situation in the marriage market is sometimes volatile. Don't you agree? Said the officer, and the girl even thought that he was threatening her now, though the guy himself denied any threats. Not at all, rather hoping that you will finally be freer. A little friendly admonishment, so to speak, Countess. Sandra also noticed that Byron's stepmother was glaring angrily in their direction. I think she will soon feel ill at the sight of her consort's son, now socializing with a member of a noble family, said the girl. Sandra was pleased with the Countess's savvy and cleverness. But at this point, the girl had to say goodbye to Byron. Today, she only wanted to make sure that their warm relationship was strong. And to the people who looked at Sandra and Byron from the outside, it even seemed that there was clearly something between these two. Will the Countess's remarriage happen to Captain Claus? Even suggested one of the aristocrats. That same night, alone with himself, Byron couldn't get Olivia out of his thoughts. That girl didn't even think to cry. The Wandering Duke is definitely not going to change his lifestyle in any way, so unlike me, that girl's future is already set. And why am I already thinking about some nonsense twice today? Pondered the protagonist. He was interrupted from his musings by Aunt Mary. "So you're here, Byron?" she said as she stepped onto the balcony. "Just wanted to get some air. I've been on the battlefield too long. It takes time to get used to events like this," said the guy. That said, his aunt didn't understand how it was possible to forget that as a child, Byron had nearly drowned in this sea near where they were. Little Byron was running away from a pack of wolves, and it so happened that he was left on the edge of a cliff. The boy had no other choice but to jump straight into the sea, and it all happened in front of young Aunt Mary. She personally took him to the house after the rescue. "What were you, teacher, busy that such a thing happened to a child?" The woman was indignant. "I beg your pardon." The horse suddenly dismounted and ran off with the young master. "I tried my best to find him." Byron's pedagogue excused himself. "Then where did the jackals come from there? Didn't you even check the place where you were going to hold the lesson? You can't get away with this. We will investigate." Mary continued shouting. She could only be calmed down by Byron's father, Jake Klaus, who explained to his aunt that it was just an accident and nothing more. "We'll forget all about what happened as soon as the teacher responsible for the incident is fired. The only fault is that he didn't provide for everything," said Mary's brother, and walked out of the office. "Brother is definitely out of his mind. These wounds don't look like bites. I don't think they were even received on the same day. We can't have him continuing to stay in this house," thought the aunt of little Byron at the time. Having made that decision, Mary immediately contacted Byron's mother's relatives and took the boy in a week later. Byron was staying with Elijah's family, but even if Jake himself wanted to get his own son out of sight, Mary didn't regret what she had done. After all, you can only get revenge if you're alive. To be honest, I don't really like that divorced woman. I know it's too hasty of me to call her that, and yet— Auntie began to narrate. "I can't deny that she has all the qualities you need to accomplish your goal. If you put your trust in the Rafe family, it will definitely be a huge blow," explained the woman. "But that doesn't mean you should discard all other candidates for your bride. Girls need to be compared to each other all the time," Aunt Mary also told her. In the afternoon, Olivia sat with the previous emperor's cousin, Count Trixie, and listened to the woman's instruction. "Alice was like your father. Well, I'm glad she was at least able to raise her children more or less decently. I say this because her looks alone once set the entire empire on edge," the woman said. And when Olivia said that her father had gone out and would probably be late, Cousin was glad that she wouldn't have to see this pathetic man. As it turned out, the old woman did not just call the girl to her. "A rumor has reached me that the Imperial family is going to introduce you to the future groom." Unexpectedly, the Countess told her. The woman did not like to beat around the bush, so she began with the main thing. His Majesty wants to marry Olivia. And according to the cousin herself, Olivia would then marry Byron Claus. His eldest daughter, Isabelle, is unrequitedly in love with Byron. But the man is an ordinary man of low origin. He can't be a match for the princess. The old lady narrated. "So His Majesty intends to take advantage of me." Realized what had happened, but still decided to clarify Olivia. "It's good to know that you're not stupid. That's right. If you marry him, the princess will soon descend from heaven to earth." Her aunt answered her. "Besides, all of high society is aware that Byron himself has no feelings for her. You're lucky," the woman also added. In truth, even without the title, Klaus is quite a worthy clan. Having once started their journey in business management, they are now billionaires, nicknamed the kings of the empire's railroads. They are not of noble descent. However, the current head, having married a noble lady for the second time, has even been accepted as one of the members of society. The exception, however, is Byron Klaus, the child of his first marriage and the firstborn son of his father. None of his relatives on his mother's side were aristocrats. However, it was rumored that Ilya's family was untold rich, though it was all accumulated by a single junk dealer through years of work. There were even rumors that more impressive sums were hidden somewhere. It was because of this that the boy had once found himself among the nobility, earning the nickname the junk dealer's grandson in Soviet society. However, this was apparently unknown to Olivia. Byron is a fine candidate to be your fiancé. Though he won't be able to become heir to the family due to disagreements with his father, he's still a military and naval officer, dubbed a hero of the Empire. If luck smiles on him one day, he might even be promoted to admiral, the woman said. But to be frank, no one would willingly want to be a son-in-law to a lowlife like Olivia's father. Since that is the case, would you mind giving the Emperor my answer? The girl decided to ask then. But the woman only got angry. An answer? Did you really think it was a mere request? You are mistaken. It's an order, Olivia, said the cousin of the previous earl. And Olivia had to follow such absurdity because she is the daughter of Duke Dixie and Princess Alice. It is a kind of retribution for the sins of her parents. At that moment, the woman felt sorry for the poor girl, so she got up from under the table and decided to come closer to Olivia. Child, even I think this is a great opportunity, for you won't find a better husband than this. The old woman began to reassure her, though Olivia herself had never even considered marriage. I understand. You weren't raised by the best parents, so you didn't have any such thoughts. The woman also added, You can't be a maid for the rest of your life, and take care of your father forever, right? Mentioned the aunt. At that moment, the old woman noticed that all of Olivia's confidence had evaporated. One had to take a chance just once, though. Maybe it was her pretty face that Byron Klaus was after. Late in the afternoon, Lawrence the butler greeted Byron's landlord. "Welcome back, sir. Looks like your dinner took too long," said Lawrence. The man then replied to him that everyone is like that nowadays and pays attention to politics more than anything else. Plus, it's an opportunity to maintain friendly relations. "My plans are to wear the military uniform for the next few more years," Mr. Klaus also said. It must be quite an onerous occupation. At that same time, Lawrence revealed that the lord had received a letter from Olivia. The butler, as always, had left the envelope on Byron's desk. According to aristocratic etiquette, a high-ranking lady should be the first to contact the person she needed. Byron had hopes that the girl wouldn't do that, but things hadn't gone according to plan. A few days ago, Officer Byron was summoned to his office by Marquis Dave. "I have summoned you to convey the will of the monarch. The Emperor considers me his closest friend, which is why I suppose I have been entrusted with such an important task. Do you know the story of the Emperor's chosen younger sister, Princess Alice?" The Admiral then asked. "His Majesty is going to formally introduce you to her daughter," told Dave of the Order. "His Majesty wishes to marry you to his niece, Lady Olivia," Dave also added. And Byron knew it was definitely about Princess Isabelle. Forcing the marriage of his sister's child could not be forced even by the Emperor himself. However, nothing held sway over the rumors of the impending wedding. What Byron can do now is to show favor in order to preserve the ruler's good name. And that's when the envelope with the letter from Lady Olivia was in the boy's hands. To be honest, from the name alone, Byron was already blown away. The next day, Tiara informed her sister Olivia that the girl had received a letter. It was a return letter from Byron. "I agree with you, Lady Olivia. So will book us a place at the hotel. Meet me there on Wednesday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon." It was stated in the letter. As soon as Olivia read it, she felt the gentleman's rudeness. On the one hand, here is only a polite account of himself, but the last lines did not please her at all. He didn't even write the girl's name in full at the end. What kind of person is this Byron Klaus? The letter of reply does not arouse any positive feelings in me. The Pauper Duke's daughter Olivia admitted to herself. Even if it was a threat, however, I still cannot resist the will of the Emperor while our allowance is at stake. The girl also understood. Olivia didn't even think she would ever wear the dress her mother had inherited from her. "I must meet His Majesty at the ball to be held at the palace and have a serious talk with him," the girl decided clearly to herself. At this time, in another palace, Lucas was complaining about his duties. "How much longer do I have to do this? Sent to headquarters to deal with the paperwork. But then why the hell did I get a military school education? This is too much, resented aloud Lucas. If you're so uncomfortable with it, why not petition for a job on a military vessel again? Byron then decided to ask. And my old man won't do anything after I leave the place specially heated for me? That's ridiculous. Besides, I promise to always follow you. By the way, my father liked you. He wants to have another drink again soon. Do you agree? Lucas decided to ask, and of course, Byron was in favor. An invitation like that was an honor for the guy. I'm not kidding. It's like you were born to please old men. What's your secret? Lucas also decided to ask. In fact, Byron was the one guarding Earl Edward's son. One day, Lucas was being beaten up by other men. Somehow you're weak for the son of the Edward family. I can't even believe that all the people from this family were military and naval officers, said one of those who teased the boy. That's when the strong abuser pointed out that Lucas could be adopted because he was weak. And that's when Byron, Lucas's savior, appeared on the horizon. He sharply hit all the guys and defended Lucas, even though they didn't know each other at the time. The Earl's weak-willed son was Byron's salvation. Friendship with the Edward family was the beginning of the creation of the necessary connections. Thanks to this, Byron's position and authority in the military and naval service became even stronger. It's already time for you to meet that girl. Do you think everyone will believe this engagement if you suddenly marry Sandra in the very next year? And when she admits it herself, there will be screams. Expressed his point of view, Lucas. Let's deal with the first problem first, and then the second. Unfortunately, a direct order from the Emperor can't be ignored, explained Byron to his friend. Well, watch this. Otherwise, you'll find yourself tied hand and foot like that in an instant. You wouldn't even recommend marrying a girl like that to an enemy, let alone a friend. Lucas said, and the boy was right. Princess Isabelle would soon marry the crown prince of another kingdom and leave the empire. Until then, we'd have to put up with this idiotic engagement. By being submissive now, the emperor will no longer interfere. Then Byron would soon dissolve this alliance and marry Sandra, who was already divorced by that time. At least that's what the guy thought. After all, even the will of the monarch will not be able to upset Byron's plans. It would be wonderful if Lady Olivia did not turn out to be a fool in the opinion of the heir Klaus. The girl was already sitting in their meeting place. A full hour had already passed, and Byron had not yet arrived. Olivia even thought he had decided not to come at all. And after all, she hadn't felt comfortable even after the moment she'd gotten the letter back. But that's when the guy's silhouette appeared in the doorway. Welcome, Captain Klaus. I'll escort you to your reserved table. A restaurant employee met him, and when the girl saw the guy's face, she didn't want to believe that the person in front of her was a man from a gambling house. Even Byron himself asked the employee who brought the guy to the table with the girl to check the reservation again, because the emperor had doubts. But the employee told him that it was exactly the table Byron had reserved. Besides, the lady had been waiting for him for an hour, and then the lad remembered the words of the wandering duke. If what was said then was true, then everything falls into place. I'm sure it was this girl I won that night. Byron guessed. There was nothing left for the guy to do but reintroduce himself. Byron Klaus. It seems this isn't the first time we've seen each other, Olivia. The first to say hello was the heir. The girl even thought he knew it all along. Not at all. Alas, not even my meager imagination could have imagined such a thing. Who would have thought that the Duke's daughter, lost in a gambling house, would turn out to be the niece of the Emperor himself? Byron explained. The moment their gazes met, Olivia realized something. Byron Klaus despised her with all his soul and did not intend to obediently follow the Emperor's will. However, this problem did not only concern him. Therefore, Olivia decided to ask the young man to tell His Majesty that he did not like the girl. "Give up this engagement, Captain!" The girl began to beg. "Please forgive me, but it is not in my plans, Lady Olivia." Byron answered her then. It was the same as the night before. instead of prayers, and Olivia was admonished like a child who had misbehaved. It turns out that when a man has no power, he uses his ancestry, the only thing he has left. Apparently, she's never forgotten her aristocratic roots, even though she's lived her whole life at the bottom of the ladder. Klaus thought. Then the protagonist decided to ask the girl if she knew about the rumors about the Dixie family. And when Olivia told him that she was aware of everything, she also asked Byron not to drag the rubber band and hurry up and explain everything that he wanted to convey to her. Right now, I am doing my best to remain loyal to the will of the Emperor. Unfortunately for you, it will come down to a real marriage. This spectacle will end the same day once Princess Isabelle is married. With a smirk on his face, Byron told her. The girl herself was very angry about Byron calling this whole spectacle in front of the Emperor, though she didn't fully know the guy's elaborate plan yet. We'll only play the roles of lovers that are about to get married, just as the Emperor wishes. As you can see, I'm just a military man, while His Majesty is the ruler of the whole country. And if such a man gives me an order, I must follow it, Lady Olivia. Byron went on to explain to her. The girl thought at that moment that it was all for the protection of the princess. Without knowing that, she wouldn't even have come today. Do you not care at all about how low you will fall in the eyes of society after such a deception? Olivia also decided to clarify. Well, as it turned out, Byron didn't care at all. He's not even an aristocrat after all. Well, or maybe I'm the only one who doesn't care. And since that's the case, I strongly recommend that you take the first step in implementing this plan. After all, to the Emperor, the opinion of his dear niece is far more valuable than the suggestions of an ordinary officer, isn't it? Byron's point was accurate. In fact, the guy was only thinking that if he could, he would have refused the engagement from the beginning. But at the same time, Byron also realized that this girl also had some purpose for which she still came to their meeting. At this point, the guy decided to waste no time and end their meeting. But just as he started to leave, Olivia caught up with him to hand him an envelope. This money was for tea, because originally the girl wasn't going to drink a beverage at someone else's expense. This only made Byron laugh. The guy just turned around and walked away, not accepting the money. Better give it all to the Duke so his daughter never has to come to the gambling houses again, Byron advised. You were lucky that day that I was the winner. Next time, however, your luck may turn against you. Remember that. The man also said lastly. Olivia noticed that the man despises her. Still, he willingly follows His Majesty's order. So, until the princess leaves the country, we have to pretend to be lovers? Such a solution to the problem will definitely be successful, but there are nuances, thought the girl. The problem was that it was unknown when it would all end, and what Olivia would do afterwards. As the girl walked back to her house, she thought it was the worst day ever. Olivia absolutely hated seeing that man again. However, no matter how much she thought about it, there was no other way. And as the girl was already approaching her apartment, she heard screaming. As soon as she entered the threshold, she noticed her father trying to take Tiara's supply of money. And when Olivia's sister decided not to hand over the money, her dad took a swing right at his daughter. But Olivia immediately ran up to block Tiara. Now Olivia's face appeared to have a slap scar on it. If you raise your hand to Tiara one more time, my patience will break, the older sister declared. She revealed that if that happened, the man's worst dream would become a reality. No me, no payment from the Imperial family. You remember that well, don't you? Olivia reminded, which was why the brave girl was not afraid to threaten her own father. Olivia was her father's weakness. After all, as long as there was money coming in on her as a member of the ruling dynasty, he could do nothing. Olivia didn't want to lose Tiara, even if she had different mothers. And the girl also didn't want to lose everything they had worked so hard to achieve. Olivia now realized that she had to be strong to protect what she held dear. She was willing to endure anything she could, to endure both her father and the spectacle for the princess. One day, Byron received an invitation to Her Majesty's birthday party. You will go to the palace as a guest. Even your late mother would be crying with happiness right now," said Lawrence and handed the ticket to his master. "Most likely this invitation is not from the Empress, but from the Emperor himself, who wants to check if everything is going smoothly with the engagement. Quite a nice reward," Byron thought. It was then that the boy remembered Olivia's words. "Yeah, because she wasn't originally going to drink it at someone else's expense," said the girl as she returned the money for the tea. Byron was very curious as to what Olivia would be wearing to the ball, and so the evening arrived. Byron's father rode in the same carriage with his son Frank. "Finally, tonight, we will be able to meet the most respected aristocrats of the Empire," the man declared. "I mean Duke Harry. You've studied together for so long, but you haven't even bothered to befriend him?" asked the strict father. "But after all, I don't have to become friends with everyone I meet, father. Especially a person like Harry wouldn't even socialize with his mother. Besides, our year of enrollment is different," explained Frank. So much money and effort was spent for admission to a prestigious private school. Frank has good grades, no argument. However, that's the only thing he has going for him. Jake thought at that moment. "I can't possibly fit into a man's world where such useless concepts as art and philosophy are pursued," he thought. The older Klaus was also thinking. "Speaking of which, Duke Dixie's daughter is due to arrive at the ball tonight," Byron's stepmother informed. It was obvious that the father was completely uninterested in this girl, since Olivia's dad was an aristocrat who was in a position where there was only begging left to do. "However, he has taken a noble lady who is His Majesty's kin as his wife. Isn't it about time Byron settled down as well?" Also, said Mrs. Turry, Klaus's lineage was only accepted by high society due to the efforts of another viscount. However, this only applied to the husband, wife, and their son, Frank. Byron, who was of low birth, was not allowed in. Still, Byron's stepmother was angry that the scoundrel had managed to climb up the career ladder quickly, just like she had when she got Jake. The woman, after all, had even had to get obstacles in the way in the form of an ex-wife out of the way. "But wouldn't his marriage be a disgrace to us? That woman will also have to become a member of our family." That's when Frank intervened in the conversation, but his mom said not to worry. Whoever Byron's fiancée turns out to be, she will have nothing to do with Klaus. After all, since he left our town at the age of 12, the lad has been living with his mother's relatives. What kinship can we speak of? Reminded the woman. Then, too, Dad confirmed what Frank's mom was saying all right. One should only think of one's future. Besides, Byron would be at the ball tonight, too. "So be sure to show everyone what the heir to the Klaus family is worth," ordered the strict father. A bunch of aristocrats had already gathered in the banquet hall of the Imperial Palace. Just then, the butler announced that Captain Klaus had arrived. I thought something about him heading towards me immediately. However, Byron is too narcissistic as usual. Even showed up before the ball started. If you look at him that way, he's more like a beast that hunts people in hopes of getting a piece of meat. His estranged brother thought, looking at the boy, although Frank himself realized that soon the society would feel the difference between them. And finally, Byron himself showed up at the ball. He was immediately approached by his acquaintances. "How hard it is to catch you. I'll be sure to book a private room next time. Hey, I've already made the captain's arrangements." Arguing amongst themselves were two young guys. Frank saw this and was simply shocked. He didn't understand why his brother was known not only by the aristocrats, but also by the members of the Imperial family. Even Frank's fiancée, Ella, was surprised that Byron knew Duke Harry. Harry himself shook hands with Byron, right in front of the other guests. Right after the boy said hello to his acquaintances, Byron approached his brother. "Hello, Frank. And you're here too, Mrs. Klein? It's good to see you again." The boy said, "Hello," whereupon Frank couldn't stand it, and decided to ask his brother how he felt about being here for the first time. "What I have seen has awakened in me the desire to do anything to enjoy such an honor for the rest of my life. Just like you," Byron admitted and gave him a little snicker. "Like me? Are you sneering? Then let's see what you say in response to..." But before he could even think about it, the butler announced that the Duke of Dixie's daughter had arrived. At last! A potential bride for my AWOL older brother that will ruin his first ball at the palace, thought Frank at that moment. When the gate opened, the silhouette of an incredibly beautiful lady appeared in it. Frank absolutely did not expect to see such a beautiful lady. Immediately after the girl crossed the threshold of the palace, her future husband Byron came up to her to give her his hand. And while they were doing a slow dance, Byron and Olivia were talking a bit to each other. "My worries were for nothing since I figured you wouldn't show up to the ball," the boy admitted. "The Emperor's order is also of great importance to me," the girl admitted at the same time. "Then I may assume you agree to participate in our little play," decided to clarify Byron at that moment. After tonight, Olivia's reputation would be irrevocably ruined, and even knowing this, she still came anyway, a fact that pleased Byron himself. The guy realized that the Emperor would definitely need something from her, and as they twirled passionately in a slow dance, Byron realized that now they were both using each other. "Since you agree to my proposal, you should satisfy His Majesty by showing joy at our future engagement," advised the dancing guy. Before entering the ballroom, Olivia walked with her cousin, the former Earl. "Don't forget that the future of the Dixie family depends on today," the woman reminded. "I know. I will do as His Majesty wishes. But in return, I ask you to keep your promise and speak to the Emperor. Because if the engagement doesn't go through, I don't want to suddenly be without an allowance," Olivia said then. "The Emperor, though cold, will not act so low. When Isabelle leaves her fantasies behind and comes to her senses, you will get what you want," the old woman promised. The woman saw how unhappy the child was. She may be calm now, but eventually this girl will find herself consumed by an unfamiliar world. I brought her with me to the ball, yet I feel as if Olivia would sell out. Spun around in the woman's mind at that moment. As Olivia walked down the hallway, she saw the Emperor's garden in the reflection of the window. "So that's what the flowers look like here, Mother." Immediately, the girl thought. When my mother told me about the palace, you could hear the admiration in her voice. With a pleasant smile, Olivia recalled. But it wasn't all that smooth. All the stories always ended in tears. I wonder if she would have made the same choice knowing how it would turn out. Olivia also wondered about her mother. What kind of love is that, since for the sake of a man like Olivia's father, not only the country, but her own family had to be betrayed? If the girl's mother had made the wrong choice, the only thing left to do was to silently accept it. However, the mother was constantly hovering in the clouds. Having fallen in love once, it will be impossible to bring everything back if the feelings have already exhausted themselves. That's why Olivia's mother lived like a traveler in the desert, enchanted by a mirage and always thirsty. But Olivia's plans don't include such an existence. Life is precious. And Olivia knows very well that an important basis of life is money. The girl does not plan to chase wealth, selling her honor and pride left and right. After all, in the life of secular society, they do not occupy the last place, so Olivia will easily be able to keep them. Their allowance depends on this engagement. So Olivia couldn't say no to Byron, not even knowing her partner despised her. "Since you agree to my proposal, it is proper to satisfy His Majesty by showing joy at our future engagement," advised Byron then during the dance. At the same time, the guy advised the girl not to overdo the acting. After all, there was one very important audience member swooping in for the performance, Isabelle. And as they danced together, Byron also pointed out that Olivia had a rather exquisite dress and jewelry. "You'll bring it all back, won't you?" he asked then, laughing. "I heard that this man became an officer after graduating from a prestigious college and military school, having received an education better than any aristocrat, yet he speaks in such an ill-mannered manner. Or is it on purpose?" The girl reasoned. She thought that it could be on purpose to talk like that, because in the gambling house, he had already managed to insult her to the core, forcing her to take off her veil. Well, since there was nothing else to hide, Olivia thought she'd better be decisive, too. Of course I'll return it. I only owe these things for one night. However, you needn't worry. I have enough savings to purchase something similar on my own, explained the ball guest. Lady Olivia, and you are more independent than I realized. The boy answered her then, and the girl told him that it was all because of his concern. It wasn't as if he wouldn't accept her payment for the tea. So thanks to your generosity, I don't think I need to worry about anything while we play out our roles, said the girl and smiled sweetly. Well, thank goodness that the money you save is being spent on something more valuable than the Duke's gambling, Byron added. And the girl told him that the only reason she had the money was because of the guy himself, so it should also be spent as a thank you, not on herself. Since that's the case, next time I'll treat you to a gourmet dinner so you can save even more. The guys continued to talk during the dance, but the girl refused Byron's present offer. Such sums would clearly be a burden to her. Do I look so much like someone who is capable of selling out a noble lady for non-payment? The boy asked in a good tone. Perhaps you are. After all, I stopped trusting you after our first meeting. Olivia continued to say jokingly while giving her real opinion. All aristocrats are stubborn to the point of being stubborn. However, no one could outdo Lady Olivia in this. It was not a fractured girl. They continued to twirl together in a dance, as then the music interrupted. A furious Princess Isabelle approached the boys. The other aristocrats also noticed that the princess was moving exactly towards the couple. It seemed that the girl was drunk. An angry Isabelle walked up to Olivia and hit the girl with all her might. Stay away from Byron, you damn tramp, she said. It was obvious how angry this princess was. After all, she had been watching the dream guy dancing the whole time, but he was also dancing with some dirty blood wench, not the princess herself. So, Mother allowed me to attend the ball so I could see this? To make me hurt so I'd let Byron go? But I've only had eyes for him all 6 years. Much to Isabelle's anger. Then he still remained loyal to the Emperor as well, even now dancing with a girl he doesn't like, observed the Emperor's daughter from the side at them. A low-born war hero, and the daughter of a rejected princess. This ridiculous alliance will stir up the secular society. That's when I'll put an end to this foolish talk of a wedding, decided the girl, who was getting very angry. And why should Byron follow such an absurd order? How unhappy he is! But I know the whole truth, thought the princess at that moment. I love him, but until now I could not say so. Byron, are you really even willing to sacrifice yourself for me? Spun around in her head as Isabelle descended from the balcony to approach the guy of her dreams in person. A recklessly loyal soldier, forcing yourself to look into that shrew's face and dance with her. The princess continued to think when she was already practically next to that sweet couple. However, did you really decide to forget about me just because my parents are against a relationship with someone of low status? Isabelle didn't understand. It was obvious that this princess had absolutely no intention of stopping, even if her parents are against marrying that guy who is not exactly an aristocrat. She loved him very much, so she was willing to sacrifice for anything. Here it was a couple minutes later. As soon as Isabelle noticed the dancing couple at all, she was standing right in front of them. The girl standing next to you has no idea what's going on in your soul. It's just a puppet, ready to do anything for money. The Emperor's daughter thought then, and it was for this reason that she struck Byron's companion. Perhaps the girl really only wanted to protect her love from a bad man. Immediately after Isabelle hit her guest, Olivia fell to the floor. You think I don't know that you're so eager to change your position in society? Nasty girl! Know your place! Isabelle continued to yell at her, and when Byron tried to stop the princess, she only told the guy that Olivia only wanted the officer's money. A princess blinded by unrequited love and jealousy, trying to humiliate me with words like that. Olivia thought at that moment. Those swear words were clearly not the most pleasant. But Isabelle can't even imagine what kind of life Olivia lives, so Olivia perfectly knows how to save face. Therefore, Olivia knew very well that if you do not open your heart to anyone, then it will not hurt. Besides, the girl is not doing this because she wants to. It's just the Emperor's decree. Now Olivia calmly rose to her feet and picked up the jewelry that had also fallen down. Look at that, Byron! She doesn't notice anything but her jewelry! Or are they not yours either? How can you even be so greedy? The princess continued to shout, but for all the unpleasant questions, Olivia didn't even pay attention. She only asked the butler to keep her jewelry until the end of the ball. This infuriated the Emperor's daughter even more. "How dare you ignore me?" yelled Isabelle. Byron was already tired of hearing this, so he tried to calm the princess down. Even Isabelle herself noticed this tiredness on the guy's face. His sad look spoke for itself. But for some reason, the drunken girl thought that the guy was looking at her like that, only because he was in love with the princess. She was glad that their feelings were mutual and hugged the guy tightly. Isabelle's mom watched in horror. From what she saw, the woman even became ill, so the Emperor immediately called a doctor. Everyone around whispered, discussing what was happening. Someone said that it would be better to have Leonora in Isabelle's place right now. The former, at least, never humiliated herself like that. Leonora? It's good to see that she chose a duke over a mere man back then. However, how did Klaus draw the princess in? Well, in terms of ability and wealth, the captain is superior to Dixie in every way. The girls discussed. The princess herself, who was standing in front of Byron, told him that he could no longer hide his feelings for her. "It's time for the whole world to know about our love," said the drunken girl. And then the Emperor's daughter decided to reach for Byron's lips to kiss him, but he only pushed Isabelle away. At this point, a palace night had already come for the girl. She was indeed too drunk. Even as she was being led away from the ballroom, the princess continued to talk about how much Byron loved her. As Isabelle was led away, Byron immediately turned to Olivia to ask about her well-being. He saw how adequately his companion behaved in such a ridiculous situation. Amazing! Even after such humiliation, she still manages to keep her face. He marveled. It was then that he noticed that the girl was thinking about something. Is she really going to continue the interrupted waltz to maintain her dignity? As if such shame and insults mean nothing to her. Byron wondered. It was just like the day Olivia had found herself sold to pay off her father's debt. The same aura of a noble and strong girl. As much as the officer himself hated to admit it, the current Lady Olivia was like a proud queen. In just a moment, she was ready to start dancing again. Since that's the case, I'll gladly answer. And even if she is now so pale as if she was about to faint, this girl does not intend to lose her dignity until the very end. Something like that deserves respect at the very least. Byron continued to marvel at the lady's fortitude. Other people were also surprised that this couple was going to dance again. After such a humiliation, these two are acting like nothing ever happened. When Olivia passed her hand to Byron, it was visible how her face turned pale. Her hands were trembling. That said, she still doesn't show her weakness to anyone. At one point, Olivia had already staggered, but Byron was able to hold her hand firmly and in a way that no one would notice. "Hold on! You don't want to pass out right here, do you?" The guy tried to support her. Immediately after the dance, the boys headed together towards the door to the former Count's cousin's house. The woman had been watching Byron Claus the whole time, but his aristocratic behavior and the ease with which he followed it really amazed the old lady. One couldn't even believe that this person was in the Imperial Palace for the first time. As soon as the boys approached her, the woman decided to inquire about Byron's time with Olivia. "It is a great honor to accompany such a beautiful lady on such a special day," the officer admitted then. Now, he handed the girl to her cousin and excused himself. As soon as the lad was gone, the woman decided to ask Olivia's first impression of Byron. But when the old woman turned around on the girl, she noticed how pale the lady had become. That said, Olivia didn't admit to anyone that she wasn't feeling well. A child that endures the humiliation of her position, and Byron, silently following the next order. Which of these two is more hardened? The woman didn't even know. Leonora raised her daughter very well. Your mother was a good person, even though she chose a man who wasn't quite right. Cousin then began to tell her story. She also praised the girl for her perfect work. At this time, the beggar Duke Dixie was still gambling for money. The man was kicked out of the bar because he had no money. "Just let me in there one more time. I'll be sure to share my winnings with you, really." Dixie continued to plead, but their establishment already had enough debtors, so of course they wouldn't let him in. Dixie himself thought that all the trouble had only started after that meeting with the officers. Dixie was no longer allowed into any establishment. What was there to talk about work at all? Looks like you don't even have anywhere to go. Since there's nothing to catch here, why don't you go to your oldest daughter? Another man then suggested to him, "I heard she has a beau. I don't think he will refuse to help pocket money for his acquaintance's father," said the acquaintance. Dixie himself did not believe that his daughter could have a suitor. The man believed that it is only rumors. Though he thought the girl was beautiful, he knew she was of no use to anyone with her family history. Then why does she dress up like that and go out every night? I swear to God! I saw your daughter going out the other night, and the carriage she came in wasn't the latest. Isn't that strange? Olivia's father's familiar coworker pointed out then, and it made the man actually listen more closely to the words of his interlocutor. "I'm not quite sure, but this man seems to be a big fish. As a father, do you really not care at all where your child goes and what he does?" The guy also mentioned. Right after Dixie said goodbye to that young man, he really thought about Olivia. Come to think of it, she really has been away a lot lately. Is she really hiding something? Pondered the father. And just then, he was just lucky enough to spot his own daughter in front of him. The girl was really dressed up, looking very well, and was walking in an unknown direction. It was then that Dixie realized that that guy really might have been telling the truth about Olivia's new beau. "We can't just leave it at that. I have to check it out in person." The girl's begrudging father decided that evening. Olivia herself was on her way to a luxurious restaurant that evening to meet the previous count's cousin. And so, as the girl sat already at a table with the woman, she decided to ask the thing she was thinking about the most. "Thank you for the invitation, Countess. However, may I ask if everything is all right with that necklace?" The lady decided to clarify. Well, the woman herself didn't think there was a good reason to worry about some broken jewelry when she had to endure such humiliation. "I'm sorry, but I feel a little bad about not being able to keep the item entrusted to me intact," apologized the modest girl. "Child, I don't really prefer all that fancy language. Let's get to the point," then stated the woman. And Olivia informed her that if she wished, she herself would make amends. Though the old woman herself wondered how that poor child would ever be able to do that. "I will tell His Majesty. After all, this is undoubtedly the princess's fault," Olivia explained. The woman was surprised at such a bold statement. "To demand a sum from her father for a thing his daughter has ruined? Perhaps the emperor will heed your words." At that, the cousin of the previous count thought, "Even if he doesn't care about me that much, a debt to the countess, a significant woman of the Imperial family he won't dare to ignore," said Olivia, and seemed to hit it right on the mark with that. "That's right. The daughter of such an important person has made a mistake. Something like this cannot be overlooked. As soon as the jeweler gives an estimate of the cost of repairing the jewelry, I will send letters to the palace demanding to pay the costs," said the woman, and then the girl was very happy that the jewelry could be repaired after all. "It is certainly possible to repair it. You have, after all, collected all the parts of the long-suffering necklace." Such a phrase made Olivia even more pleased. Countess Trixie herself also saw the difference in the girl's emotions. Before Klaus, Olivia shows indifference, whereas now she smiles like a blossoming flower. By the way, The princess went to the summer palace. It's a bit like being imprisoned, Olivia added then. But the woman explained that there was no need to worry about that. No, enough worrying about it, and it's better to focus on the engagement. What happened at the ball has stirred up society. We should expect a corresponding effect. Isabelle will eventually come to her senses and forget about Byron. Madame explained her point of view. At the same moment, the woman thought of Byron's arrival. And just at that moment, Cousin noticed the older Klaus, who also happened to be in the restaurant. That's when Olivia found out that Byron's father is an admiral, when he was approached by Trixie for such an honorable title. Along with her father, Byron himself had also come in. Fine. Since the circumstances are so fortunate, why don't we eat together? Countess Trixie suggested then. The young boys themselves stood in silence for a few more seconds as they continued to look at each other. This restaurant is located on the busiest street, which is frequented by not the last people of society. Counts, emperors, and aristocrats with a lot of influence on the government come here all the time. Most of all visitors here at lunchtime on Wednesday. This is the peak hour in this institution, when almost all tables are occupied. And today, the eyes of those present are focused on just one table. The table where Countess Trixie, the elder and younger Klaus, and Byron's future daughter-in-law are sitting. What a lot of discussion reigned around the table that day, and how much that environment disliked Byron himself. Too closely. These two are determined to show me and Lady Olivia to an unfamiliar aristocrat like some outlandish animals. Byron thought then. It was clear, after all, that this unexpected meeting between Countess Trixie and the Admiral was planned. It seems that the Emperor is too patient to use such a primitive way to spread rumors. And even after such a commotion at the ball, I don't care, though. Officer Byron's mind was also spinning. The guy's plan was to meet Olivia soon. So what if it happened at a restaurant with other guests? To start a conversation, Jake decided to broach the subject of the weather. By the way, isn't it too cold today? Winter came back in April. The weather here is so fickle. The Duke was a bit indignant. It seems like it would be problematic if the competition is postponed because of this. The man said then, and it seemed he had specifically mentioned the weather earlier to talk about his plans. A friendly polo match between the Naval Service and the Army is scheduled to take place next weekend. It is held year after year to maintain harmony between the two armies. Ah, that's right. I've heard about it. You'll be participating too, right, Captain? The cousin of the previous Earl then inquired. Undoubtedly, Byron would also participate. In truth, Captain Klaus is the team's indispensable athlete. Always shows remarkable results when participating. His father began to praise him. No kidding. Here's something I didn't think a person like that would be so active anywhere but the battlefield. Pretending to be surprised, Countess Trixie decided to keep the conversation going. Naturally. Whether on the front line or on the playing field, this hero knows no defeat. I guarantee that with such outstanding feats and ingenuity, the day when he will already be in charge of the Navy is near. The father continued to praise his son. At this time, Byron himself only watched silently as his companion Olivia quietly engaged in the meal. I'm not belittling anyone at all, and I'm not saying he's my officer, for the captain is indeed not only an outstanding military man, but a true treasure of the Navy. Jake spoke and praised his son as if he were some rare salmon dish. While we're at it, how would you like to attend the match too, Lady Olivia? It would be nice to have you there as the captain's companion. It would certainly be an enjoyable time. So the father decided to invite his son's girlfriend to come as Captain Klaus's companion. According to the rules of etiquette, it's quite polite to attend the formal reception and then go to dinner, but it turns out that they'll have to do the play again, just like at the ball. And besides, the aristocrats who'd been there the night Isabelle hit Olivia would be there. But the lady herself had no choice. After all, what was the decision was the responsibility. If this is an invitation, then it will be my pleasure to attend the event. Then answered the girl to Byron's father. In fact, Everything was fine, because she knew very well that if you close your heart on the lock, nothing can hurt him. After lunch, they all went out to the carriage together. Countess Trixie had said they had something to discuss with the Admiral, so she had assigned Olivia to the captain. Especially, and her father had mentioned the fact that the noble lady should be escorted out after dinner. So, in a few minutes, the carriage left with Trixie and Jake, and Byron and Olivia were left alone. Immediately afterward, the boys discussed the fact that the adults had originally planned this. They hope that the couple will get caught in front of more people. However, this is already an emperor's decree that has to be obeyed. If you have any place in mind to go to, then share, Lady Olivia, Byron said then. And the girl felt a little awkward talking about such a thing, but she didn't know much about it. What Olivia meant was that she didn't understand much about the relationship between a man and a woman. So, she decided to do as the captain told her. Though Byron himself had indicated that he didn't think it was a good idea, then how about a place where there will be a lot of people? It's still a meeting for another rumor to appear, after all. The girl suggested then, and Byron agreed with her. An opera house would be perfect for something like this, except that the next performance is still a long way off, and getting good seats would be a problem. There's also a department store, but that probably wouldn't work either. There are too many people. The guys won't even be noticed. So the hotel came to mind, but he decided it would be better not to go there with Olivia. Then he asked how Olivia felt about the paintings. Now it was clear where they could go for a vacation. The girl's father was watching from the sidelines. Besides watching them quietly throughout the dialogue, he also hid in a corner so he couldn't be seen. She's dating a man! So that man's words were true! But why does that type's face look familiar to me? Where have I seen him? Pondered Dixie, and after a second he realized who was standing near her daughter. Images of the day he had lost his daughter at cards to an officer flashed before the man. It was the exact same guy, after all. A few minutes later, the boys were already at the Art History Museum. They seemed to have chosen the right place, but they didn't stay there long. As soon as Byron went outside with his companion, he noticed it was snowing, but he was only thinking about Olivia. At first, I thought I had heaped another burden on myself, but now I think Lady Olivia is like a gift suddenly dropped from heaven, pondered the protagonist of this story. Byron found himself in the palace only thanks to the interest of the upper class in the niece of the emperor, and even managed to get rid of the princess, like a time bomb. But though Olivia had been shaken by life, she was still a noble lady, and that was what the officer valued most of all in the girl. And an engagement to such a person would definitely elevate Byron in social circles. Therefore, it was also quite favorable to him. Speaking of which, since it was snowing early, Byron took off his officer's hat and put it on the girl's head so that her hair wouldn't get wet. "It seems it's time to begin our play," then uttered the lad. But there would have to be a few adjustments to his current plan. After all, he was going to use Olivia as long as it was to his advantage. Now, it was as if he was starting to feel completely differently about her. While the guys were in the museum, as one would expect, people around were talking about the couple. So they're the ones the emperor was talking about? That they're together? Yes, I saw it at the ball with my own eyes. In truth, they look quite harmonious. Besides, Captain Klaus doesn't match the rumors about him at all. He doesn't look like someone who is willing to run away at night with the princess at all. The other girls who were also in the museum at that moment were discussing. The guys themselves were only silently looking at the exhibits in the museum. They weren't even talking among themselves, just standing there looking at the painting. The girls who were standing behind them openly continued to talk to the guys. Still, these two attracted attention. Not the paintings, but exactly Byron and Olivia. And they had a rather interesting nickname in high society: the junk dealer's grandson and the beggar princess. It was a hot topic of discussion. At some point, Byron realized that they had been here long enough and informed his companion. Soon rumors about them would spread throughout Soviet society. Everything should go smoothly, even in spite of the turmoil at the ball. Lady Olivia herself accidentally listened to the guy because she really liked art. But when he suggested she continue looking at the paintings and stay in the museum some more, the girl refused. "You shouldn't. My little sister's classes should be over soon. Her school is just nearby, so we'll walk home together," Olivia explained. Byron himself was surprised that his companion had a sister at all, since he had heard that Princess Leon only had one daughter. Then Olivia had to reveal that they were half-sisters. Tiara's mother was a maid, sometimes helping them with chores. But she didn't live with the girls now, and Olivia had always considered her sister part of the family, even though she was just a bastard child to the others. Insensitive father beat and insulted Tiara, calling the girl names, and only the availability of an allowance kept him quiet. Therefore, while the Imperial family transferred money to Olivia, the girl could protect her sister. Nevertheless, between themselves, the girls get along well. At this point, Byron had already finally decided to offer to end their play on the museum. But at that moment, the girl remembered that Countess Trixie had told her that the Klaus brothers also had different mothers, but they didn't seem close at the ball. It was also strange to learn that the heir to the lineage was the second son. Still, there was something the captain couldn't tell her. After they left the museum, they decided to say goodbye near the guy's car. Byron himself offered the girl and her sister a ride home, but she, of course, refused. At the very least, Tiara would be embarrassed, and Olivia herself didn't want to cause any inconvenience. Since the snowfall wouldn't end anytime soon, and walking in this weather was foolish, Olivia decided to take the streetcar. "I had plans for tonight anyway, so there's no point in insisting if she's against it." The protagonist thought then and got into his car. It was then that Byron saw Olivia's little sister in the reflection of his windshield. He marveled at how different they looked from each other altogether. When the streetcar pulled up, Olivia still couldn't get inside because there were so many people, so the girls had to wait for the next one. But Byron himself was not going to watch the sisters, so he drove towards his house. But when the picture of Olivia being shoved by a crowd of people popped up in his memory, he didn't hesitate to turn his steering wheel to go back. As soon as he arrived, he noticed that the sisters were already on the streetcar. Apparently they managed to get away after all. How stubborn she is. Officer Byron thought at that moment. The day of the polo match had arrived. That morning, Olivia remembered her late mother's words. "Secular society is the ultimate battleground, Olivia. It's important to understand the hidden meaning of any conversation. Otherwise, you can easily become a laughingstock," her beloved mother had once told her. Mom had said that one day they would return to their rightful place. Olivia hadn't believed it and thought learning etiquette was a pointless waste of time. But she hadn't known then that she would end up here. Now Lady Olivia appeared in Soviet society in fancy dress. She was also met there by Sandra, Lucas's cousin. The girl immediately came over to say hello. "I can't take my eyes off your waltz at the recent ball. If there hadn't been that commotion, Byron would surely have introduced us to each other. What a pity." With a smile on her face, Sandra explained the whole situation, but the expression on Lucas's cousin's face changed in the same second. "So please be sure to remember me, as we will see each other often, Lady Olivia," Sandra said in an already weakened tone before walking away.